uh, how Ayurvedic medicine is different than Western medicine.
Absolutely. So great question. Ayurveda is a integrative medicine or an alternative medicine, or you can also say a traditional medicine. It comes from, its origin is India, and it is a healing system that encompasses the whole physiology. So it's a whole picture approach, whole person approach, and it celebrates and focuses on the uniqueness of each individual and their physiology. It looks at the body in terms of doshas and their combination. So you could say their energies or their combination of and predisposition to acquiring more phlegm or acidity or wind in the physiology, and then how that perpetuates and brings a likelihood of you developing certain disorders or diseases. But it looks at a whole picture approach. It's not a Band-Aid approach. It looks at the root of any disorder or disease and removes that, and then implements supportive lifestyle suggestions that are very simple. It can be from herbs, food, diet, routine, and also processes like meditation to support the mind-body integration. It is different than Western, as it does focus on the whole picture. And it also has this key thing called pulse diagnosis. Pulse diagnosis allows for a link to be formed between the physician and the client, so that there's a deeper understanding of their physiology, their constitution, really what they came into the world with, and then how to live a disease-free life. Ayurveda is not all about, removing the cause of a disease and focusing on disease. It's about the promotion of health, how we can live healthy for our whole life. So it is a lifestyle, as well as it does have very efficacious clinical approach and diagnostics, like the pulse diagnosis. It's also a great link with modern medicine as well. So it can support both worlds.
And I'd like to bring in Alarik. You are a medical doctor, correct?
No, I'm a neuroscientist.
Neuroscientist.
I taught the medical doctors.
Okay, because you have a PhD rather than an MD.
Right.
So you
exactly. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you like to add to this conversation?
Well, first off, I'd like to say that it's a joy to be on with you, Felicia, for all you're doing for the island and its people for so long. It's just a joy anytime to sit down with you and communicate knowledge to the people of this island, so everybody can be more in harmonious, long life and everything. So thank you, Felicia, and her station. And I also want to thank Abigail, because she is really good. I mean, we have Vaidya Krsna coming in, who is world-renowned Vaidya, or doctor of this ancient system, this oldest traditional system of medicine. And he is excellent. He'll be here on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the 23rd, 24th, 25th, the end of this month, towards the end of this month. On Friday night, he'll be giving a lecture that's available to the public at the Philippine Cultural Center in Lahui, near the YMCA. Yeah, and that's in the evening, 6 to 8. And then on Sunday, there's a workshop in the afternoon, and that's also available. And people can call all throughout the weekend for consultations. And there's a number for consultations and more information about this whole set of events around his visit. And that number is 808-452-7025. It's a local number, 652-7025. And my background is in both worlds. I spent my whole life in neuroscience and physiology, studying DNA in the brain and states of consciousness and so forth. I've also spent most of my life in Ayurveda and meditation and the field of consciousness research. So, and that's been across the world. And I continue to do that even today. And that's why it's a joy to be with Abigail and yourself, and to invite Vaidya Krsna to come with us. People should understand that Ayurveda comes from two words, Ayu and Ved. Ved is the structure of knowledge, the intelligence that we all are made up of, that this planet, this island is alive in that intelligence. 5,000 years ago, it popped up and it's still here. We're all on the surface of it. We're all enjoying it. There's that huge intelligence. That intelligence that's the earth and the island and the space. It's also in all of us. We're not that different from the island. It has its structure, its physical structure. It has its transformations, the sun, the lava, the energy, and it has things that flow. The air flows, the water flows. So it has things that flow, things that are transforming and fiery and metabolism. And it has things that are solid and structural. Just like the human body, we have bones, structural. We have fiery things, the metabolism, and we have things that move. Our blood moves, neurons move, electricity, we think. So our body is an encapsulation of the same intelligence that's on this rock island here on Kauai. We are the same really as Kauai. We're just a different manifestation of that, a different form of that same intelligence. Ayurveda is the understanding of Ayu is lifespan and Veda is that knowledge. So it's a knowledge of lifespan for humans. How each human can take advantage of that knowledge of how everything is knit together into a comprehensive whole. And the simple technologies that was alluded to by Abigail, is that pulse. And we should probably spend a moment to talk about how somebody could touch your wrist. Like
Your radial artery, yeah.
Yeah. You touch your wrist, the artery there, and normally they say, oh, all right, your heart rate is 70 beats a minute. And they walk away, and that's the end of that wrist. But a Vaidya can put his fingertips on your wrist, and he can tell you a tremendous amount. I'll tell you a quick story. Back about 30, 40 years ago when I was at UCLA, we invited one of the best Vaidyas of all times, who was alive at that point. And he had just come from NIH, National Institutes of Health in Washington, D.C., which is the biggest health research institute in the world. He had, just before a lecture, he met with the head of the institute, NIH, and he took his pulse. And in the next 5 minutes, he told that doctor, the head of the NIH, more than he had learned a month before in his comprehensive physician had told him. There's an immense amount of information in the pulse. And if we can, I think I'd like to have Abigail, with your permission, to talk more about the pulse and why when Vaidya Krsna talks and takes your pulse during a consultation, what's going on and why it can be so valuable for you. Is that okay? Felicia, would that be all right?
Yeah. So I was
Great.
waiting for Abigail
Go for
to
it.
answer that.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm here. So there is a link, and this is one of the links that's created between the physician or the practitioner of Ayurveda and the client in front of them. Before pulse, it's just talking, asking questions, dictating, understanding the person's health history. But the pulse never lies. So as a lot of us can be kind of difficult with history taking or remembering what we ate yesterday, or, how long we've been having this pain in our back or our foot, or, or indigestion. The pulse is a record where it shows what we came in with, how long and prolonged our the disease state or disorderly state is, and if it's just, passing by shortly. So we can see the depth of who the person is, what they came here with, and their full physiology. So we can see that just from touching the radial artery or the pulse. And then as we progress and look at the different and each layers of the pulse, there are multiple layers. One that is about the psychosomatic layer and how the individual is experiencing their world through the emotions and the mind of them. That is different, though a link, a part of their healing journey is not only physical, but also mental and emotional. And we can see, are they talking? Are they disconnected? Right? Some women come in, they're gaining weight, but they're very worried and anxious. So their mental state would say that they're very anxious, but their body's feeling weighed down. So there is a disconnect there. We can see that disconnect. We can also see when it's very much connected. So our thoughts are the origin point, and they can inform our physiology, right? They concretize into our physical form. And so we can feel that subtle layer of who the person is and meet them there, and then express to them and validate to them also what they're feeling, which is a big thing. And so the pulse allows for the practitioner to see the client. And that's such a joy, being in front of somebody and them feeling seen for the first time, maybe ever, in a clinical setting. So, and then from there, we build, a unique approach that helps promote more health and wellness for them. So,
Yeah. And I think putting that in layman's terms is that, a lot of times somebody might say, hey, my knee hurts, but the real question is why does your knee hurt, right? There might be so many other reasons. And so if all we try and do is just solve the hurting knee, it's the knee's going to hurt again, just as soon as it kind of gets away from whatever is directly addressing it, because the underlying problem hasn't been changed. I would say that many Western doctors actually really care about their patients. It's just sometimes the way the machine of having it work is looking more at symptom by symptom, or even as we have ear, nose, and throat doctor or an oncologist, or, whatever way somebody specializes, even their very nature of being specialized isn't so much addressing the whole, where Ayurvedic does. I know I've had one profound experience where I was given a drug that I just probably should never have been given. I took one pill of it, and my reaction was just, very, very strong and difficult reaction that lasted months. And the pharmacist who fulfilled that prescription was also an Ayurvedic practitioner. And that person saw the problem I was having, and that pharmacist made the comment that they knew when they filled that prescription that it probably never should have been given to me in that capacity, just way too much for my size and everything else. And I felt like it practically killed me. I got all my affairs in order for my kids and everything, but she did this Ayurvedic treatment on me that took about a month or two, but almost immediately I started improving, and I felt like I was able to recover as much as I was ever able to recover. I did not recover 100%, but it really moved me forward a lot. And it was mostly, just my whole body just scaled out. I felt like a lizard. She said, everything in your body has dried out that badly. And so I was taking these oils internally, putting them on the outside of my body, being in saunas. And she said, as your skin recovers, you're going to recover. And it's not because your skin's the problem. It's, everything had lost its ability to hold, the nourishment that it needed, from water or whatever way it was. Anyway, it worked. And I was transitioning downward until she started working on me with this other process. So that's my experience of really feeling a different change. Marshall, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, Abigail, I was wondering if I'm really curious about that process of using the pulse, to get information about the patient and their history, or their health history, and it just sounded like a lot of data can be got in that way. And I'm wondering, I guess bottom line really, is that something that there is scientific explanation for, or does that cross over into a kind of spiritual healing?
thank you. That's such a great question. So one reason why I got into Ayurveda is because I felt like it was the perfect mix between, using the intellectual mind, but then also having the intuition come in and influence it as well. So I would say, again, it's the meeting of the two. Everybody can learn how to take their own pulse or other people's pulses, but the degree to which that advances and you can, receive more information depends on, your level of practice and education and commitment. But it's available to everybody. It's not just, it can be learned. Now, to receive all that information, it definitely can be a lot, and it's a very valuable tool. And what Vaidya Krsna does is on a whole nother level of being able to access in a very quick moment, your entire health history. It's also a great adjunct to support, you, if you are involved with a, ear, nose, and throat doctor, or you are involved, communicate, use these different avenues to help support you.
So okay, I just want to say, you keep saying Ayur Krishna, and is that different than Dr. Raju?
Yeah, Dr. Raju, his first name is Krishna, so Dr. Krishna Raju. Yeah.
Okay.
So we either call him Vaidya or doctor, and it's either Krishna or Raju. So there's 4 options there.
Okay, so Dr. Raju is
Right.
Ayur Krishna. Okay,
Yeah.
and Marshall, you had another question?
So then as the practitioner, do you experience it as a sort of intuitive process where you're getting information that is not, strictly linear and logical, but actually getting information in a more subtle way?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. There's both involved. There's actually some really cool things. So in India, not everybody knows about pulse diagnosis. Not everybody's actually taught pulse diagnosis. So I was actually one of the, I was a doctor over there, a resident physician in a hospital, and I would teach the other doctors about pulse diagnosis because they were never exposed to it. So I thought it was very funny coming from me to, give them back this knowledge of theirs. And we would go to conferences, and there were actually engineers creating devices that you can put on a person's wrist and get some information from. Now, the information and knowledge that you would get from, your fingertips touching a person's artery, that level of connection and intuition can only be had person to person. These devices, though fantastic that they're happening and that they are being promoted, and more doctors in India can have the information that can be acquired in the pulse, but nothing compares to the intelligence of two people coming together and, receiving the information from the pulse there. The pulse also, you can feel whether the pulse is jumping or if it's gushing, right? There are certain words that we can use to describe it that, everybody can understand. If it's, hypertension, there's a particular way that the pulse feels when it's hypertensive. There's a particular way that the pulse feels when there's a lot of fear and anxiety. You can feel the fear and anxiety coursing through all of the other organs as well. So you can see where and maybe, which organ may be taking some of that stress on more than others, right? If people are experiencing their stress accumulating in their neck and in their shoulders, or if it's in their low back, all of these things you can feel where exactly in a person's particular physiology. We call it a kaivya gunya. It's a Sanskrit term for the weak spot. And this is where things like to generally accumulate. So it can be in the colon, for instance, where a person can either have constipation or oscillate between diarrhea and constipation. Or the kaivya gunya for somebody can be their lungs. So they either may have bronchitis or asthma. So we can see in their physiology where things may like to accumulate. And so then if we get it early on and we can see in their physiology, okay, this area of the body, things like to accumulate there, So let's support it. Let's nurture that. Let's build it back up. Right. And then so that, something doesn't take hold there. And then there's, more of a strict protocol that we would have to do in order to reverse it.
Good.
So thank you. And this is are you Dr. Abigail Neal or?
Not in the US. No.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
And,
But
and so for the listener, and then we have Dr. Alarik Arenander, and we're going to take a break for just a moment and listen to a couple of public service announcements.
Great.
And this is
Thank you,
Kauai.
Felicia.
Yeah, Kauai Community Radio with Kauai Soapbox with Alana and Marshall. And, Kauai Community Radio is happy to really support many different programs and help listeners know what's coming up.
Are you curious about underwriting on KKCR? Underwriting is a partnership between your organization and KKCR, saying that your business mission aligns with KKCR's, which is to serve our island community. The goal of underwriting is to provide transparency about where our funding comes from while recognizing and thanking the businesses that support us. Underwriting is similar to advertising, but since KKCR is a non-commercial radio station, we follow certain guidelines for the messages we produce. We stick to the facts, names, contacts, locations, and services. No calls to action and no superlative language. And we don't crowd our airwaves so that our supporters can be heard. To get your organization on the air, email us at uw@kkcr.org. Let us find the right fit for you on KKCR.
Aloha, members of the Keikahu Foundation and KKCR. The Keikahu Foundation Board of Directors, which oversees the management and operation of KKCR, is seeking people who would like to contribute to KKCR's success by becoming directors of the foundation. The directors are responsible for ensuring that the Keikahu Foundation and KKCR achieve their missions. Directors focus on the direction, policies, financial health, community support, and stable operation of the organizations. Candidates must be legal residents of Kauai and must have been members of the Keikahu Foundation for at least 1 year. For more information on the details of applying and on what is expected of directors, please see the director's application on the Keikahu Foundation page of the kkcr.org website.
All right. And mahalo for all the different ways people support Kauai Community Radio. I want to make sure that the listener understands that part of the reason for our discussion and understanding what Ayurvedic healing is and Ayurvedic medicine, 5,000-year-old practices from India is because we is it June 26th?
23rd.
23rd, 24th, 25th.
23rd, 24th, 25th. And so on the 23rd at the Philippine Cultural Center, there will be an evening presentation for people to come and listen to Dr. Raju speak. I'm assuming both of you will be there. And
Yeah, from
probably
6 to 8, it's open to the public. Absolutely. There's that evening lecture. And then on Sunday, he's going to have an afternoon workshop, and that's also available. And throughout the 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday coming up this June, he will be available for consultations. And anybody who's interested, there's a 800 number, an 808 number, a local number, and that is 652-7025. 652-7025. And I think we were talking about pulse, if you'd like to continue in that, Felicia.
Yes, I want to continue in that. For sure. We were talking about pulse, and I know that we are being really detailed. So I was trying to pull it up a little bit for a moment because people are typically driving down the road while they're listening, and help people understand that it is holistic healing so that we look at the entire body. I'm sure there's all kinds of indicators, not just the pulse, but also colors of the eyes, all different kinds of things. You can look and you can see if somebody's a little jaundiced. You can see the swelling in the ankles. You can, and certainly regular doctors, Western doctors would be looking at those things as well. But, you're looking at basic indicators ahead of the training and such that you get the subtleties without needing all the machines and tests necessary that Western medicine relies upon. Would
Yeah,
that be-
as I was speaking earlier, the intelligence of the physiology, the individual's intelligence that makes and maintains this physiology is the same intelligence that makes everything around us. And so we're part of nature. And in a sense, we're made up of three things, if you want to. We're made of things that move, things that metabolize and transform, and things that are structural, right? If you want to build a human being, you need bones and muscles. Good start. Then you need metabolism. You need to put food in and the rest of it out. So you get some metabolism and nourishment. Then you need something that's going to organize it and get the blood around and get the thoughts going. So you need something called vata, moving. You need something called pitta, which is sort of the fiery transformational thing. And you need something like kapha, which is the structural. So we can just say the moving, the transforming, and the structural. We have all three because we're not an amoeba, we all have bones, okay? So the point is we have all three, but the mixture of all three and the actual components of those three, because there's some subcomponents, that mixture is unique for each human being. Everybody on this planet is unique. There's nobody like anybody else, just based on DNA alone, but the DNA made that physiology in your lifestyle, okay? So, yeah, you had a question?
So I was going to say, just kind of bringing it up a level a little bit, whether somebody has, they're dabbling with cancer, or they have a neurological dysfunction or digestive dysfunction, it all sort of flows into the same element of identifying the blockages in the body and
Yes, the imbalances.
the
The
imbalances in
imbalances.
the body and working on correcting those imbalances. So it's less something where you're going to go and get a prescription for a given drug. You certainly might get some herbs or medicine, but I'm trying to help a person who maybe is feeling a little under the weather. Maybe they're puffy. Maybe they have different, chronic conditions. If they went to this event on June 23rd, 6 to 8 at the Philippine Cultural Center in Puhi, and Dr. Raju is speaking, what would they expect? They're going to be learning different elements, and if it seems to apply to them, maybe they would learn how they can either get some direct consultation from him, or there might be other people so that they can pursue it more. Is that what people would be learning? Because ultimately, this discussion is about many things, but it's also trying to encourage people to consider going and listening to this presentation.
Go ahead, Abigail.
Thank you. Yeah, so Vaidya Krsna, or Dr. Krsna, will be talking over many points, one being, longevity and a disease-free life, maintaining good health. These are practical things that everybody can relate to and understand, with how to approach prevention, how to promote health. And then also, if there is a disease that a person is struggling with that is either recent or chronic, that there are also practical and supportive changes that can be implemented. Nothing should feel daunting or scary. There are solutions, there are options out there. There are adjuncts to your protocol that you're already doing. And Vaidya Krsna will go over that, or at least touch on that, in terms of, living your best life. So Ayurveda is not all about disease prevention or even treating a disease. It's also and fundamentally about longevity and about how to live your best life and how to optimize your physiology. What you have been given. How can I best protect this? How can I best live in optimal health and vitality? So it will give you fundamental things that you can, baby steps that you can add into your life casually, see how they work for you. Take homes, simple take homes. And then if there's something that you are really struggling with, there will be topics on and some,
Consultations?
Yeah, exactly. Consultations where you can get a deeper inspection and more one-on-one with your current situation. So, but we will be going over, good food, some rules about Ayurveda that everybody can use.
Maybe I can give one. Can I give one good example, perhaps?
Sure.
So in Ayurveda, something as simple as food that Abigail just mentioned. Now in Ayurveda, when you eat and how you eat and how much you eat and how you put things together make a difference. Okay, if you're eating spicy food on a hot day and you have a hot personality, you're going to have a hot problem physiologically. Okay, you're putting hot on top of hot on top of hot. Now, if you don't know that, and you feel, why am I like this? I'm yelling and screaming, I'm angry and fussing and stuff like that. You don't know why. But in Ayurveda, it's clear. You shouldn't be in the heat eating hot food when you already had sort of a hot propensity or an imbalance. The other thing, for example, with food is that around 12 o'clock, between 10 and 2 are the best times to eat your meal of the day. Because that's when your digestive, your fires, your transforming elements, your digestive system are at their optimum. So if they're at their optimum, then if you eat at 9 in the morning or you wait to have lunch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, all your digestive enzymes have already gone away. They're just like not available, and you're not going to digest properly. And if you don't digest properly, you're going to have a problem. And that comes with all the food doesn't get digested.
Okay, and I know both of our people in the studio here have a question, and then I also want to open it up to callers at 808
Great.
867-7771. Marshall.
So just that sort of digestive window there in terms of the time of day, is that relative to kind of sunrise, sunset time? Or like if I sleep late and stay up late, is it going to be the same for me and my kind of daily clock?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for asking. So it does have to do with the sun. So when the sun is at its peak, this will be midday. This is also reflective in the digestive capacity will also be at its peak. So Ayurveda takes cues from the outside as well as the inside. We see that the outer is a reflection of the inner.
Okay, so it sounds like lunch and a siesta.
But and lunch is always where I'm the hungriest. Alana, did you have a question?
Oh, not really. I was just saying when you were like, no spicy foods when it was hot, I was like, but I love spicy foods. But I guess
and everything in moderation. It all depends upon, everybody has a different physiology. And if somebody says, I don't feel good, I get an upset stomach with that particular food, it's because your physiology is trying to tell you something. You want to call it intuition, or you want to call it just clean out common sense. If you're having a reaction to food, the body is somehow not being properly engaged with that. You're not working with the environment properly. That food should not be in your diet. Now, with the Ayurveda, you can know ahead of time, because this kind of food is pitta or fiery, this kind of food is moving, and this kind of food is stable. Fats are different from water, which are different from carbohydrates. Okay, all these different foods have different propensities, and how you mix them up and how much and in what time of day, all this makes a difference. Now, we don't have to get complicated, but basic knowledge can help a lot.
Yeah, and I definitely think that flows with experience. I certainly for me, I like to eat in the middle of the day. And Marshall has been, we have a little bit of a tug here. He tends to be really embracing the new trend of technology, and I tend to be a bit resisting. You had a question to deal with.
I wonder, Dr. Arenander, are you familiar with Elon Musk's Neuralink project?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Neuralink, Elon Musk's Neuralink project.
Yes.
What do you think about that? Like I sit there, I cross my fingers at,
Okay, so for the radio people, why don't you tell me what you think that is so people know what we're talking about, Marshall?
Yeah, describe Neuralink.
Sure, it's one of Elon Musk's businesses, and what they have developed are implants that go in to tie into the brain and allow, for example, a monkey to play a video game with its mind. And the stated intention is things like allowing people who are paralyzed to be able to manipulate things on a computer, that sort of thing, or actually use
Right.
prosthetics with their mind. That sort
Right.
of.
So
So-
this is technology. The point here is that the human brain is probably the most powerful computer we can imagine in the universe. I mean, the amount of computations going on in your brain right now, Marshall, is more than probably all the computers on the planet. That computational power. It's huge. Now, of course, what we do with it and how much it gets manifested is another story, but that potential is in every human brain. So, for example, when I was teaching medical doctors, we would show them you could stick a little electrode in this muscle, and you'll see it firing like that. It's just a muscle firing. But if you hook that back up to something, you could play music with that. And that was like 40 years ago. So the brain, if you put a device into it, you'll find something. So your brain doesn't have any sensory data itself. There's no sensory endings in there. If you itch your skin, it's only because you have a sensory ending. But there's no itching in the brain. There's no, per se, temperature in the brain. It's all based on an internal dialogue of consciousness and the brain functioning. So if you put an electrode in and it's picking up electrical signals and you externalize that to a screen, then your brain, can look at that screen and it can find itself. It can find itself. Without that electrode in the brain, it can't find itself. It's not out here. It's all in here. And so basically for prosthetic devices, and if you want to play video games, that's a waste of time, but you could do that. But yes, I mean, just recently they had a person that had a complete ability to walk again. So for prosthetics, I think it's great. But the value of the human brain, and one thing Dr. Raju is going to talk about this coming weekend, not this weekend, but the 23rd in the evening at Filipino Center, is that it's mind over matter, if you want to say it. The most important thing in your life, per se, is not your body. It's how your mind and your brain rules your body. You rule when you get up, you rule what you eat, you rule what you speak, what you watch on TV, what you learn, how you behave. Your mind is the most powerful tool you have, and Ayurveda, part of Ayurveda is based on consciousness, how your brain functions, how well it's integrated, how much of that potential, which is enormous, is harvested so that you can live the longest, happiest life. And he'll be speaking about that too. And it's also found in your pulse. How balanced is your pulse? For example, there are schools where the young children sit in the classroom, they come running in and they're all like kids and they're all at their desk and they're all twittering and talking. The teacher says, now we're all gonna take our pulse. All the kids take their pulse for just a moment. Kids all sit and take their pulse for just 30 seconds and the room is absolutely silent. Those kids have just dropped down into this quiet, orderly state because they just felt their pulse. It was like me is looking at me. There's this sort of self-referral loop, of me knowing me. And that's a very powerful loop for calming, settled integration. Then they're ready to learn in that class. So the pulse is very powerful, even without any knowledge of the dynamics, because there's different layers to the pulse, there's different parts of the pulse, there's different dynamics of the pulse. The pulse is tremendously complex. And if you put on top of that the knowledge base related to that integration, it's a huge matrix that a Vaidya learns how to do. And the Vaidya is only different from the average person because they choose to do that and they have a propensity for that. Anybody can learn the pulse and figure out what's going on, but to do it really well, they want to come and listen to Vaidya Krsna on the 23rd in the evening and then have a consultation if they want to know more personally.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and Abigail, you have studied with Dr. Raju or Vaidya Krsna?
Yes, I've met him, and he has taken my pulse, and it was very profound. And yeah, it's a small community of those that practice this science and that seek to make it their life. So yes, yeah, it was a joy meeting him and learning a little bit from him. I stayed in his house when I did visit India, but yeah, it was brief, and I look forward to seeing him again.
All right, and is this a world tour, tour around the United States. He's not just coming to Kauai. Is he going around the other islands? Is he going around the nation? What's happening?
I believe he's going to be in Oahu after he leaves Kauai. And this is like he's going to bounce here before going back to India. So we're really fortunate that they changed the plans at the last minute. Instead, coming from the mainland, instead of going right back to India, he's going to stop here, Oahu, after Kauai. So on the 23rd, 24th, 25th, he's going to be here. And if anybody's interested, the local number is 652 7025. 652 7025. And we've met Vaidya Krsna and actually had long treatments with him in India over the years. We actually traveled to India specifically to see him and spend several weeks with him, and primarily for longevity. There's a whole section of Ayurveda which has to do with longevity
Yeah.
and preventing dementia and Alzheimer's and living a long, happy life. So,
And I know you have spent quite a bit of time there, and I have a caller who has a question for you guys. And I just, in this one moment, I want to say, Alarik, thank you for your repeated quality medical letters that you have sent to the county council. Just acknowledging you as being very conscious to send material to us. Okay, aloha caller, you're on the air.
Hi, thanks very much. I just wanted to get a little better idea that on the evening presentation that Dr. Raju is doing, what is he actually going to cover? I mean, what am I likely to learn from that meeting? And then if actually do a consultation with him, what is likely to be the result of the consultation? Is he going to tell me to change my diet or what?
So
Okay,
I think it was alluded to earlier that our understanding is what Vaidya Krsna does generally. He introduces the whole basic idea of the value of Ayurveda. This is not modern medicine where it's symptom-based and just go have this and go away kind of thing. This is a way of looking at the whole person. With just a few moments of touching the pulse, it's possible to learn a lot, if not everything, about your physiology, past and present, and so forth. You can know a lot in the pulse. It's all there. And knowing that, there are simple things that can be recommended to help bring balance to your physiology. So those things, which you may not even be aware of, there are things going on in your physiology you may not even know, or they're getting out of balance or going out of whack and getting all distorted or something like that. And all these things can be detected in the pulse. You don't have to be falling down ill to have the benefit from this. Anybody who wants to know how to have a better physiology, they'll learn how that's about and why the mind is so important and how the pulse can work so well. And so then you have the opportunity to sign up for a consultation. Of course, I think if you wait to the 23rd to come to the lecture and want a consultation at that point, it may be a bit difficult to get a consultation considering how many people there are on the islands and the fact he's only here for 3 days. So if somebody's interested at all and wants to know more, they should just call a local number, 652-7025 number, and you can make a consultation appointment now or one for the Sunday workshop and know more. I mean, just to know some of this stuff is fantastic. To have a consultation is even better.
okay, and I think we have another caller with a different question. Aloha,
Thank
you're
you
on
for the
air.
caller, Red. I appreciate that.
Hi there.
Hi.
So I was appreciating the conversation about Ayurveda, and I just wanted to add in a little local comment here that we've had some really wonderful Ayurvedic practitioners here on Island. One is my dear friend Miraca Morningstar, who lives on
Oh,
Kopalau Road,
Oh, yes, yes.
and she just wrote up and published a really great introduction to Ayurveda. Her book is amazing, and I just wanted to plug that for people that want to get other information and be a good lead into the lecture, I'm sure.
Yes.
No, it's
Mary.
great. All these books on Ayurveda,
Yep.
people are going to be surprised. Thank you for mentioning that book. People should buy that book and they should read it. Ayurveda is not complicated. This is simple stuff. It's like just being in tune with nature, just knowing who you are and how you function in the world around you. If you just do some simple things, they can make profound difference on your level of health and your longevity.
Yes.
this is simple but powerful stuff. That's why it's so powerful, because it's so simple.
And thank you, caller.
Thank you so much.
And on that point, when I had the experience that I mentioned earlier from bad reaction to a pharmaceutical drug, which I almost can't take pharmaceutical drugs. We ended up having that same pharmacist come at the time I was teaching my group middle school called Akamai Learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did about a month-long program with the kids on Ayurvedic medicine, and they learned where they were kapha or pitta, or what's the other one now?
Vata?
Vata.
Yeah.
And they learned these different pieces, and it was pretty interesting. And it, when you're not used to hearing about it, you think, that's a little out there. But once you kind of take the time to really get it, it's common sense in a way that makes a lot of sense, and it hopefully heals problems before you even know you have it. Like
Exactly.
in a Western medical situation, we go once the tumor is a problem, or once you're really in pain, or you have high symptoms, and then you go try to deal with the symptom. Where with Ayurvedic medicine, what I got out of it at a 7th grade level is you take care of the problem before you have the symptom.
Yeah.
And that you
Absolutely.
you can sense it early. We are almost,
I've
Yeah,
also
definitely.
seen clients who I'm their last resort. So there's the whole range, but if people can understand how to implement the foundational principles early,
Yeah.
fabulous.
I mean, Ayurveda can track you from the very, very tiniest imbalance that's starting to grow, that eventually in a month or 5 years or 30 years will become a real problem that may not be amenable at that point and by modern medicine. So it's a way of really fine-tuning your understanding and your physiology to be long-lived and happy. And that's Vaidya coming on the 23rd, 24th, 25th. If people are interested, 652-7025. And we want to thank you, Felicia, for this time. We want to thank all your listeners for being there and calling in, especially if you have that Ayurvedic book, you should buy it. There's many Ayurvedic books, but if there's a recent local one, you should get it. Abigail is in Kaua'i, and she is outstanding Ayurvedic doctor, or not, I wouldn't say doctor, but practitioner.
Do you
And
have a
she's-
number, Abigail, that you want to give out?
Yes,
A
ma'am.
website or something?
I think the
so-
easiest one for Abigail, I'll just step in here.
yeah.
You go to AZ Tribe. A to Z is like the alphabet. A to Z, aztribe.com. It's all there on aztribe.com. If you want a telephone number, give it to them.
Okay, telephone number, local number, so 808-720-1784.
1784.
Yes.
AZ Tribe.
808-720-1784. Okay, thank you both.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you
All right.
Thank you all. We'll see
All
you all
right.
there on Friday.
on the
All
20th.
right. All right. Warm aloha.
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 Nui.
All right. And we have jazz with John at the top of the hour. And so this is Felicia, Alana, and Marshall. Any last words from any of you as we sign out for jazz with John?
I did just flip to the aztribe.com website. Abigail's website. It's gorgeous. I see that she offers Rolfing, Ayurveda, astrology, yoga. You can have your whole wellness team there. So beautiful. Thank you, Felicia. Thank you, Alana. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.
Okay. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui.
Hey, jazz fans out there. This is John Gordon. You're invited to tune in and turn on to Jazz with John. The show is on from 6 to 8 p.m. every other Tuesday evening on KKCR. I play all kinds of jazz and often feature fine jazz musicians from the past, sometimes playing from our vinyl jazz LP collection. Music runs the gauntlet from Art Tatum to Zoot Sims. I also provide information on the musicians and the recordings. If you like jazz, I know you'll dig this show. Be sure and tune in Jazz with John on alternate Tuesday nights on KKCR, Kauai Community Radio.
Felicia, you signing off? Felicia, or were you just going to disconnect? I think she's signing off. Nice job, Gabe. I want to keep calling you Gabe.
Gabriella,
Gabriella.
Gail, nice, Gail. You did a good job.
It's a beautiful day.